On this episode of Curtain Call, we visit Truro, Nova Scotia and discover all that the Marigold Cultural Centre has to offer. One of my favorite feelings ever is that feeling you get when you walk through those final doors of a theater, a playhouse, or a performance hall. There's something quite magical about the anticipation building as you wait for the story to unfold in front of you. For me, I got to add a little bit of nerves to those feelings back in 2015 when the Marigold Cultural Centre gave me the chance of a lifetime to allow me to showcase my very first feature film, Afraid to Speak. Now, for an artist, the most important thing is the art and the story. But the second most important thing is finding an audience to share that story with, which is exactly what the Marigold gave to me as a young filmmaker. So I'm very excited today to deep dive and jump into the history, events, and more of the Marigold. Opening in 2006, the Marigold Cultural Centre has been the host of hundreds of differing performers over its somewhat short history. However, despite its age, inside houses a rich guide through the past while showcasing the best of what the present and future has to offer. Currently, it is led by new executive director, Marshall Fight.
An executive director works every day to just keep the best interests of the organization in line, whether that means the financial operation, the creative operation, or just the community relationship. It's just doing whatever's needed to be done to keep those things prosperous and engaging. So it could be revising budgets, or it could be looking over programming. I think it's just ultimately being a community leader. So originally the Marigold, this building where we are right now, this was the Centennial Empire Theaters. So it was originally three theaters. There was one here and two more out in the lobby. 16 years ago, the place was purchased to be turned into the Marigold Cultural Centre. There's a bit of different changes in there because originally it was open to be a for-profit theatre. Eventually, the Cobequid Arts Council came along. They were established back sometime in the 70s, came along and took over the operation of the place and turned it into the nonprofit that we know it as today. A couple cool things about Truro off the bat is that we are a town of 13,000. We're the fastest growing town in Nova Scotia of a comparable size, so comparing to places like Bridgewater. But what a lot of people I think sometimes forget is a town like Truro is still rural. We serve the Truro community, that 13,000 people, but we also serve a larger community of around 48,000 people in Colchester County and surrounding areas. So ultimately, 3/4, 75% of what we're serving are people who are living not in town, but in villages and townships that are much smaller and much more isolated. We're serving people down dirt roads. One of the reasons that's so important, rural Nova Scotia is one of the harbingers of cultural production in Nova Scotia. We always see the city, and it's easy to see the city as this hub of cultural production. And it is, and the city's still vital. I still go to the city all the time for resources. But the reality is that we have just as diverse of an audience, just as diverse of a population, with just as diverse cultural needs as the city. We still have all of these people, we're one large neighborhood of Halifax. And all of those people have the exact same hopes for cultural engagement, for the feelings of belonging and engagement that come from having prosperous, high-quality culture in your community. And to have that, I've always really had this strong conviction that it shouldn't be accessed by a 2-hour trip. It should be accessed in your backyard. You shouldn't have to go to the city to have these challenging experiences. You should be able to have that right in your home county. There's other spaces in town that are doing performances. There's Truro Brewing that's doing drag shows. We do drag shows as well. There's the Rath Centre that's doing, these large productions, the exhibition. There's a whole network of performance spaces in Truro. I think what makes us stand out is, we're invested in it not just for entertainment, which is great. I'm not deriding the need for entertainment in your community, but we have this long-standing purpose of feeding the cultural needs of our community. We also have a mandate of not just providing a certain genre or a certain set of performances. We present dance, we present country, we present hip hop, we present drag shows. We're this multifaceted beast that's supposed to serve a multitude of needs and supposed to be a place that anyone can come to and find some reflection of themselves in our programming, or in, whether it be in our art gallery or in our performance space or in our workshops. We're more than just a theater. We're more than just a place for a concert. We're a place where you can find the development of your cultural hopes. We run theater programming for kids. We had over 70 children go through this summer. Not every kid is a sports kid. Some kids are a theater kid, and we're the place that is diverse enough to offer all of those things to all parts of our communities. So I think our reputation is as this adaptable, malleable thing that is just constantly forming itself against the needs of our audience. The first thing that I like saying when I think about growth and what's happening, because there's so many conversations about our communities growing and how they're growing, and that a part of that is immigration. A colleague of mine said something that I keep constantly repeating in different scenarios too, but that I think makes so much sense to me, which is I want to be confronting the problems of growth rather than the problems of stagnation. There are challenges to adapting to growth. To build capacity to do more shows, I need more sound techs. You can imagine there's not 100 sound techs waiting for work in Truro, Nova Scotia necessarily. You need more infrastructure, you need more employees. And a lot of times, the budget lines don't match up with the growth. So you end up growing, but you end up doing it with more and more tenuous bank accounts. And that's stressful, but I would rather be spending money and not losing money, but emptying bank accounts to address the problem of growth instead of keeping an empty building alive. I'd rather be paying bills because there's so many people in here rather than paying bills because no one's showing up. So there is that challenge of our building's very old. It's got wear and tear. We've got to pay for that. We've got to pay for that maintenance. We've got to pay for that upkeep. We've got to put more onto our small staff. There's a staff of about 3 people here, plus our sound tech who's contract. It's more and more labor on us. But I'm excited by the fact that challenge is growth-based, not boring-based. And the reality is at some point, when there's growth, someone has to see the growth and then match up. The province recently released more money for organizations like ours because they saw the way that we were growing and they saw the way that our operational funding wasn't keeping up with our growth. So hopefully if we can build momentum of growth, especially in towns like Truro, we can see those challenges mitigate in participating and enjoying that growth more, I think.
Having many of Nova Scotia's best take their walk onto the Marigold stage, the future also looks bright, as some of the most well-known artists in the province and some groundbreaking up-and-comers prepare to take their show to Truro.
The one I'm most excited for, just because I'm a long-standing fan, and I'm also a white guy who loves folk music, is Joel Plaskett. Joel Plaskett, to me, is the new Stan Rogers of Atlantic Canada. He's writing the songs that in 50 years we're still going to be singing. He's become so commonplace, but I still get enthusiastically excited to see Plaskett play. We've also got Matt Minglewood coming to do sort of a retrospective on his 60-year-long career. We've got Hillsburn, once named one of the best upcoming maritime bands coming out of the Maritimes, is going to be here in September.
The scene is set. You're seated, the anticipation is rising, and the lights finally come on as the show begins. But before that, here's a little preview of what you'll see inside the walls of the Marigold Cultural Centre. In the main lobby, you'll be met with a variety of things to do and see, starting, of course, with the box office. Next, the Dry Dock Bar is ready to serve all of those looking for a beverage before the show. While waiting for the doors to open, make sure to look up and see the many posters signed by the artists themselves of performers past and present who have made their mark at the Marigold. The foyer also hosts local art, available for purchase to those looking to own some Nova Scotian paintings. And while empty at the moment, the Marigold also has a room dedicated to art displays. Before heading into the theater itself, you'll pass by a sports museum, displaying a rich depth of history of local sports from the Truro area. Now it's time to head into the theater and grab your seat before the show begins. And with no bad view in the house, the seating options are limitless inside the Marigold. Currently, the main stage is under construction to make the experience even better for those in the audience as well as performers alike. Above, a full lighting grid allows for options galore for the artist taking the stage. Including various effects for the needs of the stories being told. What most people won't see is the backstage area, reserved for staff and the performers. This includes 2 green rooms close to the stage itself. One, a smaller sized room with a wall of mirrors and a small nod to some shows of the past. A little deeper into the building is the second green room, with a little bit more space for those prepping to put on a show. And like most rooms in the Marigold, take a look around to find some more history of those who have performed before. The Marigold has a lot to offer inside its walls. Art, sport, history, and so much more are available to all who visit this stunning art center. Prior to taking on the role of executive director, Marshall had his own experiences at the Marigold. Experiences he works hard to continue as he aims to broaden the diversity even more for performers and audience members.
Coming here before I was running the place, I was running a different art center, and I was bringing drag performances here. They're sort of variety shows where we bring a set of drag queens from, or drag performers rather, some of them are non-binary, and we bring them from the city or Halifax or from New Brunswick in for performances here. The shows are one of the big sellers of the Marigold, and I knew that before coming on here. I think what's so meaningful about that, because there's other shows that are high quality that don't sell out, and we're kind of an emerging company putting these shows on, but we're packing the 208 seats of the theater. It's just describing, what I was talking about earlier in terms of meeting the needs of an audience. There's communities of people out there. Our drag shows are all ages too, I should say. So there are youth at them, and the content is made to be for all ages. You immediately see the need that you're meeting, that there's these, whether it's young people or even grown adults who haven't felt belonging in certain spaces, haven't felt belonging at a football game, haven't felt belonging at a country concert, which are all still great things, but not for everyone. Coming here and then seeing that final place where they feel like they're in a cultural space they belong in, that they're in a space where they're feeling the freedom they should feel in their identity. And also feeling encouraged to be creative, to be outlandish, to be exciting, to be fun, to be foolish, to not take ourselves so seriously. The enthusiasm of those shows always spoke to me the need for just more fun in our lives. Drag ultimately is just about being outlandish. It's about being yourself. It's about radical acceptance of who you are. If 208 people, we have wait lists for these shows, 208 people come out to them, then how hungry are we in even our rural community that you might not expect that, to have a radical sense of acceptance for ourselves, for each of our individual personalities. I think a lot of the values I just talked about in terms of, I do the production end of those shows, and I work with, like I said, Brant Eisner, who's a drag queen, who is one of the performers and also the host and the coordinator of the creative end of the shows. What I've always seen coming from drag shows that is in every part of what I do with my job, even if it's paper pushing and even if it's the boring ends of it, is looking at things and saying, what is a budget line doing to serve that need of the individual in our community? When I do my programming, it's not just about building a diverse lineup, about meeting a checklist of who you need to have on that stage, what voices you need to have, what genres you need to have, what bodies you need to have. It's a matter of looking at what's in your community and saying, well, my community is the checklist. It's not just a piece of paper to meet an EDI mandate, which are still important. It's the checklist of people, of people with needs that I have to meet. So I think those performances, working especially with outlandish drag queens, realizing that everyone has this internal need to belong and that culture, performance and art give that, influences every part of my job. A big priority too coming into it is diversity in terms of, we need to have like gender representation and, ethnic representation and all these different forms of representation. But as we promote that diversity on our stages and performance and body and voice, we also need to express that through genre. We can't say that we want to have more BIPOC performers and then exclude the music of BIPOC performers. It's this massive juggling game, but ultimately your community tells you what they do and do not want by ticket sales. And talking about drag selling out, ticket sales are a vote of what is needed and what needs to be done. That's your community constantly talking to you. The famous question is, what happened to all of us, especially in my industry at the level I work at with my colleagues, because we were the first to go. We work in an industry built on really tight group gatherings, and we were the last to bounce back. And I think there's a lot of information coming in now that will say that ticket sales and audiences have bounced back. And I think that I've seen that in some of the shows, some of the current ticket sales going into our 23-24 season. I always have a hesitation in answering about what COVID changed about us. Because COVID happened and ruined a lot of our incomes, ruined a lot of our sustainability, a lot of our projections, a lot of our ability to look at the future. But art centers and nonprofits have always been built on constant change and also constant mountains to overcome. It's not a simple endeavor to operate an art center. You're answering to a million needs. You're trying to organize a million financial lines. Things have always shifted for us, and things have always been not necessarily easy for us. But that's the beauty of these nonprofit cultural centers like the Marigold. We've always been meeting the challenge. We've always been rising to that occasion. So COVID sucked, but COVID is just one challenge in a long list of challenges because we're always changing. We're always changing against what we need to do to be prosperous for our audiences, to keep our lights on, to keep our doors open. It was probably a lot less fun than some of the challenges we've encountered in the past. But if it wasn't COVID, it was going to be something else. The biggest thing, and I lean into cliche with it, but cliche is cliche, and sometimes because of its unifying ability, it's a thing we can all agree on. And it's that when people walk out and they see each other, we know from research on performance that people go to performances primarily to socialize. Generally, people aren't only there to just see the performer. It's actually a small part of why people go to performance. They're actually there to go on a date, to take their family out, to take a loved one out, to be with a friend that's visiting and show them off of their home. When people walk out and they're doing that socialization at intermission or after the show, what I want is people to walk out and be reminded that in the room that night there were conservatives and liberals, settlers and indigenous, there was black, there was white people. There was this mash in a single room at one time with one unified reason, which is the performance on stage. And the performer is a part of that too. That we can take these moments from a world that is hyper invested in touchy conversations, in finding differences, and be at least for 2 hours in a room, drinking beers, hanging out, spending time together, realizing that at the end of the day, we all go to the same sources for belonging. I think the same thing with sport. I think the same thing with music. I think the same thing with art galleries. All of these are just spaces where when people go in, they should walk out feeling humanity.
The Marigold Cultural Centre has a special place in my heart. I got to show my very first feature film on this stage on a night I'll truly never forget. And neither will those lining up for the next show at the Marigold. And on the next episode, we get a glimpse behind the curtain as we gain backstage access to Nova Scotia's own The Town Heroes as they prepare for an acoustic show in Truro at the Marigold.